Lila started doing things that Jaden couldn't quite figure out. This new behavior was nothing like the games he played with his friends at school. Jaden was only 10 years old and in the 4th grade. He loved playing basketball and diving into adventure novels. But most afternoons, he came home to an empty house because his parents were always busy with work. Mr. and Mrs. Carter owned a bustling bakery in town. They worked long hours to provide for Jaden and give him a comfortable life. The school bus dropped Jaden off at his house around 3 every afternoon, and he'd be alone until 6, when his mom returned from the bakery. "I'm so bored staying here by myself," he complained one evening. "We're sorry, Jaden," his mom replied. "It's only for a few hours. We're working hard to pay for your school and everything else you need." Jaden understood, but he still wished his parents could spend more time with him. One day, Mrs. Carter had an idea. "Jaden," she said, "why don't we ask Ms. Elena, our neighbor, to watch you until we get home?" Ms. Elena was a woman in her late 20s who lived alone next door. She was always cheerful and kind, and Jaden's parents trusted her. "Okay, Mom," Jaden agreed. He knew Ms. Elena well. She was friendly and often gave him little surprises, like cookies or stickers. With his approval, Jaden started spending his afternoons at Ms. Elena's house after school. Ms. Elena's home was cozy and tidy. She always welcomed Jaden with a snack and a bright smile. "Jaden, come sit down and eat. How was school today?" she'd ask. At first, Jaden felt a little shy, but over time, her warm personality and funny stories made him feel right at home. Ms. Elena was incredibly kind, and Jaden began to enjoy his afternoons with her. Ms. Elena would often buy cartoons and other fun children's movies for Jaden to watch on her small TV. Eventually, she even bought him a handheld gaming console, which he absolutely loved. "Jaden, here. This is for you," Ms. Elena said gently, a warm smile spreading across her face as she handed him the gift for the first time. Jaden hesitated at first, feeling shy and unsure about accepting it, but she insisted. "Jaden, you're like the little brother I never had. I'll get you anything you want," she said. Jaden thanked her with a heart full of gratitude as he took the gaming console. But from that day on, things began to change. It all started one Thursday afternoon after Jaden had returned from school. While he was at Ms. Elena's house, she suggested teaching him a new game. "This game is just for the two of us, Jaden. No one else is allowed to play or know about it," she said softly, almost in a whisper. But Jaden didn't understand the game at all. Ms. Elena made him see and do things that were far beyond his understanding. She guided his hands in ways that confused and frightened him. Even more confusing were the sounds Ms. Elena made, and the expressions on her face as they played this so-called game. Midway through, Jaden interrupted, his voice trembling. "Ms. Elena, I don't like this game," he said, his face filled with worry and fear. "Don't worry, Jaden," she replied. "You'll get used to it. In time, you'll even enjoy it." Little by little, this secret game became a daily routine, one that Jaden hated. He was young, innocent, and far too naive to fully understand the look of excitement or pleasure on Ms. Elena's face whenever they played. It left him feeling confused, scared, and trapped. Over time, Jaden began to dread going to Ms. Elena's house. He started staying late at school after the final bell, lingering in the classroom or playground to delay going home. On Fridays, when school ended earlier, he would walk as slowly as possible, dragging his feet along the road to buy himself more time before arriving home. One day, after yet another unsettling game session with Ms. Elena, Jaden felt an overwhelming urge to tell his parents. But fear held him back. He couldn't explain why he was scared or why he felt so reluctant to speak up, he just did. That evening, he finally gathered the courage to approach his mother in the kitchen. "Mommy, I need to tell you something," he began softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is it, Jaden?" Mrs. Carter asked, her tone impatient as she turned quickly from the kitchen sink. "Mommy, it's about Ms. Elena." Before he could continue, his mother interrupted him. Jaden, how many times have I told you?" she said, frustration evident in her voice. "Your dad and I work hard every day to give you the best life we can. I know we're not always around, but Ms. Elena is helping us fill that gap for now. Don't worry, you'll get used to her, and you'll even become good friends," she added, patting him on the head. "But Mommy," Jaden tried to explain. "No buts, Jaden," Mrs. Carter cut him off sharply. "Now go to your room and finish your homework. And don't bring this up again." "Yes, Mommy," Jaden replied quietly, his heart sinking as he turned and walked out of the kitchen. That night, Jaden sat alone in his room, tears streaming down his face. No one seemed to care about what he was going through. He didn't understand what Ms. Elena was doing to him, and now even his own parents didn't have time to listen. But little did he know, his troubles were only just beginning. The next morning when Jaden woke up, he realized with horror that he had wet the bed. Jaden was shocked and tense. He hadn't wet the bed since he was a toddler, and he hadn't even drunk much water the night before. Could this be because of the game Ms. Elena plays with me? He wondered, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of it. To make matters worse, he couldn't tell his parents. His mother was a strict disciplinarian, and he was afraid she would scold or punish him. Jaden quickly hid the soiled sheets and changed his clothes before anyone could notice. But the bedwetting didn't stop. It continued for days. His parents were too busy to notice, but Jaden knew something was terribly wrong. One afternoon after school, Jaden went to Ms. Elena's house as usual. She greeted him warmly with a plate of food and a glass of juice. But when she tried to initiate her game, Jaden mustered the courage to speak up. "Ms. Elena, I don't like your game," he said nervously. "It's making me wet the bed every night. I don't feel good." Ms. Elena's expression shifted instantly. For a moment she seemed deep in thought, as if processing what he had just said. Then she forced a gentle smile and moved closer to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Jaden," she said reassuringly. "It's completely normal for boys your age to wet the bed. You'll grow out of it soon." But her words didn't comfort Jaden at all. He couldn't explain everything that was happening, but he knew something wasn't right. Ever since he started playing this game with Ms. Elena, he felt a wave of anxiety every time he stepped into her house. His heart would race, and he could feel it pounding in his chest. He desperately wished his parents would come home earlier so he wouldn't have to go through this anymore. Soon the stress began to affect his performance at school. He found it hard to concentrate and his grades started to slip. Jaden felt trapped, confused, and utterly alone. Jaden, who had once been one of the brightest students in class, could no longer focus on his schoolwork. He no longer enjoyed playing with his friends like he used to. During break time, while the other kids ran around the playground or kicked a ball, Jaden would sit alone in a corner, lost in thought. Images of Ms. Elena and the unsettling game she played with him kept flashing through his mind. His teacher, Mrs. Thompson, soon noticed the change in Jaden's behavior. Mrs. Thompson was a warm, approachable teacher who had a way of connecting with her students. She was playful, kind, and well-loved by everyone in the class. But one of her greatest strengths was her ability to observe and understand her students. She could easily tell when something was wrong, even if the child tried to hide it. Mrs. Thompson had been watching Jaden for a while now. She remembered him as a cheerful, lively boy who always participated in class and played enthusiastically with his friends. But lately, he seemed distant, absent-minded, and unusually quiet. Something was clearly bothering him. One day after class, Mrs. Thompson asked Jaden to stay behind and meet her at her desk. "Jaden, is everything okay?" she asked gently. "You've seemed a little lost these past few days." Jaden stood in front of her desk, his head bowed, his hands fidgeting nervously. He wanted to tell her, but the words felt stuck in his throat. After a long, awkward silence, he finally mumbled, "No, ma'am, everything's fine." Mrs. Thompson wasn't convinced. "Jaden," she said softly, "if you're going through something, anything at all, you can talk to me. I'm your teacher and I'm here to help you. Not just with schoolwork but with anything you're dealing with." Jaden nodded but said nothing more. Mrs. Thompson dismissed him, but she knew deep down that he was hiding something serious. He was too scared to open up, and that worried her even more. That afternoon, as Jaden walked home, he prayed that his parents would be there so he wouldn't have to go to Ms. Elena's house. But when he arrived, everything was the same as always. The house was empty, and he had no choice but to go next door. Jaden stayed at Ms. Elena's house, and as usual, she tried to engage him in her game. But this time something strange happened. Jaden felt a wave of discomfort and fear wash over him, though he couldn't fully understand why. His heart raced, and he felt a sense of dread that he couldn't shake. This experience made him realize he couldn't keep it to himself any longer. He decided he would finally open up to Mrs. Thompson the next day. The following morning at school, after the lesson, Jaden mustered the courage to approach Mrs. Thompson's desk. With his head bowed and his voice trembling, he began, "Mrs. Thompson, I need to tell you something." Mrs. Thompson leaned in closer, her expression serious but reassuring. She could tell this was important. Jaden glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then whispered, "It's Ms. Elena, our neighbor. She does things that make me feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to do." Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened in concern as Jaden shared his experience. She listened carefully, her heart breaking for him. "Jaden," she said gently, "you've done the right thing by telling me. You don't have to feel ashamed or scared. No one should ever make you feel the way Ms. Elena has. I promise I'll do everything I can to help you." For the first time in weeks, Jaden felt a glimmer of hope. Someone had finally listened to him and believed him. Still, he couldn't shake the fear of what might happen if Ms. Elena found out he had told someone. Mrs. Thompson acted quickly. She arranged a meeting with the school principal and other staff members to discuss the situation. They all agreed that this was a serious matter that needed immediate attention. The next day, the school contacted Jaden's parents and asked them to come in for a meeting. Mr. and Mrs. Carter arrived at the school, looking anxious and confused. "Did Jaden get into trouble?" Mrs. Carter asked nervously as they sat in the principal's office. "Please have a seat," the principal said calmly but firmly. "What we need to discuss is far more serious than that." "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," the principal began, her tone serious, "your son has shared something very concerning with us about your neighbor, Ms. Elena. Jaden told us that she has been making him feel uncomfortable and doing things that he doesn't understand. Were you aware of this?" "What?" Mr. Carter exclaimed, his voice rising in anger. He clenched his fists and stood up abruptly from his chair. Mrs. Carter was equally shocked, her face pale with disbelief. Mrs. Thompson, who was also present, carefully explained everything Jaden had shared with her. She emphasized how brave Jaden had been to speak up. After a long and emotional discussion, Mr. Carter reluctantly agreed not to take matters into his own hands. Instead, they decided to involve the proper authorities to handle the situation. That afternoon, Mrs. Carter personally went to the school to pick up Jaden. She hugged him tightly and said, "Jaden, I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you when you tried to tell me something was wrong. I was so caught up with work that I failed to see what you were going through. But I'm here now, and your dad and I are going to make sure you're safe and happy again." Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. That evening, there was a loud knock on Ms. Elena's door. When she opened it, she was met by 3 police officers in uniform, accompanied by Mr. Carter, Mrs. Thompson, and the school principal. One of the officers stepped forward and said firmly, "Ms. Elena, you're under arrest for inappropriate behavior with the minor." Ms. Elena's face turned pale. "There must be some mistake," she stammered. But the officers were already moving to take her into custody. "You've got the wrong person," Ms. Elena protested, her voice trembling as she stood frozen in fear and confusion. "I haven't done anything wrong." "It's best you remain silent," one of the officers interrupted firmly. "Anything you say or do can be used against you in court." Without another word, they handcuffed her and led her away. Meanwhile, Jaden was too scared to go outside. He stayed in his room, watching the scene unfold from his window. As he saw Ms. Elena being taken away in the police van, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. Finally, the nightmare was over. From that day on, Jaden's parents made a conscious effort to be more present in his life. They took turns picking him up from school and spending time with him at home. At school, Mrs. Thompson kept a close eye on him and encouraged all her students to speak up if they ever felt uncomfortable or needed help. She reminded them that it was okay to ask for support and that they would always be listened to. Though Jaden still struggled with bedwetting, his parents assured him it was a temporary response to the stress he had been through. They took him to a therapist who worked with him to process his emotions and heal from the trauma. Over time, things began to improve, and Jaden slowly started to feel like himself again.